Thank you so much, Batobile, for that wonderful introduction. When I look at the peak of a mountain, in my mind, I've already fallen, and so I climb. A simple yet very powerful statement that has so much meaning. It speaks to acceptance of failure, risk, and fear. That instead of letting these things stunt us, we remove their power. I would like us to unpack the statement a bit. I've already fallen. This doesn't mean defeat, but rather that you've already mentally faced your worst. You've already made peace with fear of falling, of failing, of hurting. There is nothing left to lose. There is nothing holding you hostage. And so I climb. Because you've accepted the fall, you are now free to act without hesitation. The fear doesn't paralyze you, but instead it fuels you. You climb because you are no longer protecting your comfort or your ego. You are fully committed to the effort. Good day, everyone. Today I want to talk about a powerful skill that can transform our lives. And those two skills are resilience and grit. I'm sure we've all faced moments in our lives that have tested us. It may have been a personal loss, it may have been a career setback, or just the weight of uncertainty that you faced. I'd like us to go on a journey of unpacking how through our own mindset we can thrive in the face of adversity. So maybe we must start by just defining a little bit, what is this grit and resilience we are talking about? I think for me, resilience in a simple term is our ability to bounce back from difficult situations, accepting pain and failure as part of the process. Grit, on the other hand, is about sticking with something long after the excitement is gone. It's about choosing to stay the journey, to stay the course, regardless, because of the purpose that you're trying to achieve. But together, grit and resilience, they form the backbone of every comeback story that you have ever had in your life. I'd like to share just a little bit of my own personal story. So a few years ago, probably 10 years ago or so, I faced a significant career setback. So in our organization, what we normally have is we do 360-degree evaluations where they assess everything, your leadership style, how you work across teams, and this gets done by your peers, your subordinates, and your seniors, basically evaluating you. So in my case, what was happening is that, unfortunately, for 3 times in a row, my feedback was terrible. I was told I was aggressive, I was not consultative, not taking responsibility for my actions, not articulating a clear vision for my team, just to name a few. And 2 years on, I would get probably even worse feedback. And every time I would get the feedback for 3 times, my response would be stuff them. Fighting back was my response. Thinking about no one works as hard as me. I'm driving the team, externalizing the problem. And what I was doing was that I was actually cultivating more aggression and dissent and setting myself back by doing so. I think it took me a moment of long and serious reflection and vulnerability on my side to make a step change. I started openly seeking honest feedback from trusted sources. And by doing so, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was creating and building meaningful connections, which have lasted me to this day. I think the first step in building my resistance was shifting my perspective on change. Instead of seeing it as a disruption, I viewed it as a chance to learn, adapt, and grow. That mindset shift allowed me to see opportunities and embrace failure. I focused on my daily actions and I kept at them. And every day I was improving step by step. The second thing that I did was to seek help. For a full year, I worked with a professional career coach. What I've learned in that process is that when you are deliberate and authentic about seeking or asking for help, you would be amazed at how many people will be there to provide the support. The very own people that might have contributed or given me the feedback that I was receiving in the form of my company, peers, and whoever, actually fully sponsored my coaching journey. And they went even further to provide regular feedback on the behavioral changes that they were picking up from me that were positive. And I can mention many more support interventions that I received. What's the moral of my story? Well, the long and short of my story is that within 2 to 3 years after that transformation journey, I got a promotion. And a lot of the practices that I learned during that period, I have carried with me to this day. You know, they talk about the science and the psychology of grit and resilience. And I can mention a few speakers and psychologists or authors that have really done a lot of research on this. One of them is Angela Duckworth, and I'm sure some of you have written or read her book on grit. She's a renowned psychologist and author. And in her research that she did, she found that teachers in the toughest of schools, even cadets in the army and even spelling bee champions, what she found was that it was not the talent or, you know, that resulted, or how smart they were that resulted in their success, but it was staying committed to their goals, working hard, and bouncing back from failure. So just don't think that someone that is talented is going to make it in life. Sometimes they don't, but it's actually those that work hard and continue to strive for their goals that actually succeed. Also, Carol Dweck did a study on, again, she's a psychologist that has done a lot of work on growth mindset. And she has this one phrase that just resonates with me a lot. She always talks about believing that you can improve is just half the battle won. When you start in your head just believing that you can improve, you've already won half the battle. And almost all the psychologists and the scientists confirm one thing, that resilience and grit, no one is born with it. It is a trait that we can all learn. And I thought that is important because often people look at someone and they say, oh, but so-and-so is so strong, so-and-so is so bold, etc., etc. But if you put practice, you can all achieve and you can all be resilient in your life. So I want to speak about a couple of tools that you need to be able to have resilience. Really, that will stand you in a good stead in whatever situation that you have. Firstly, I think I've already spoken about this. Have people in your corner that will remind you of your strengths when you forget them. Build that network. It doesn't have to be 500 people. It can be 2 people that will always say, but do you realize that you have this, you have that? And that is just a reminder that pulls you back. Second thing is that you always need to reframe failure, not as the opposite of success, but as part of it. The other thing that I want to stress, or one of the key strategies, is that you need to practice self-forgiveness and self-care. And that could mean meditating, going on walks, gardening, not really staying on the failure. If you were presenting something and you stuffed it up, or you forgot what you were meant to talk about, okay, move on. What is it that you can learn? Maybe the next time I'm going to bring cue cards so that I make sure that I don't forget. But always make sure that you don't get stuck in the past, but you always move on. I think amongst the other things that we also sometimes forget when we are on this journey is the power of consistency. Don't do something and you fail once and then you think, okay, I've failed and therefore it's me gone. Be consistent. Keep at it. Try and try again. And when that happens, you will see that things will happen. Then, and another thing that I think is very important is finding purpose and setting goals. I've always found that in my life, when I'm clear and I break those goals into smaller pieces, I find them, instead of overwhelming me, I say, let me achieve this little milestone. And then I celebrate the achievement of that, and it propels me to the next level. So for me, those are the key things. If I were to, I'll share the presentation with the team, but it's talking about really 5 or 6 tool sets that you have. 1 is a growth mindset. 2, meaningful connections. 3, being consistent and keep practicing. 4, when you fail, learn from the experience. There's a nice term that people use. They say, fail fast, fail forward. 3rd is know when to ask for help. And lastly, I've already mentioned, is cultivate forgiveness and self-care. So I always want you guys to know that with these tools, you are going to go a long, long, long way. I want to share another personal story of mine, just to maybe bring all these points home. So on the 28th of April of this year, I lost my youngest sister at a tender age of 40. I know we think maybe there's a bit of spice to this, and there is none. She had a long existing heart condition. And so last year, her heart started failing. But I want to talk a little bit about my sister and who she was to me. She was my collaborator, my pillar of strength, my mirror who outlined flaws without shame, without fear. But at the same time, she shined a spotlight on my strength and successes like you will not believe. But with the grit in me, when I lost her, I sought help through counseling. And I'm still going through a psychologist 3 months after her death. Why am I doing this? I'm practicing self-care. I'm looking after my mental health and well-being. I have chosen a growth mindset. I've chosen not to be paralyzed by her loss, but to be stronger from her loss. I've also found purpose and a deep and meaningful connection in the amazingly beautiful relationship I'm now building with her son. Almost daily and in the evenings, we video call each other. He's actually in the UK studying. And we chat for over hours, sometimes 2 hours and longer. And again, why am I sharing this story? I'm sharing this story because the lesson is, it's in the time of adversity that we emerge stronger, that we need to pivot and find new purpose. And I think I've found mine. In conclusion, I want to leave you with a challenge. I'd like you to all, maybe this evening, maybe over the weekend, to go think about the one area in your life where you can show more grit and resilience. I'd like you to think about how will you show up differently. And I just want to leave you with this one last statement. Resilience is not loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet voice that says, I'll take another step forward tomorrow. Thank you.